It begins on a night that feels ordinary, the kind of night where crickets hum in the brush, where the summer air of Georgia hangs heavy and damp, clinging to your skin, and the horizon is washed in the faint glow of distant towns. You are not expecting anything more than the usual, just another stretch of June darkness, filled with the comfort of routine sounds and the lazy sweep of stars across the southern sky. But then the stars change. It starts as a flicker, small and uncertain, like the glint of a match far above the tree line. You think at first it might be a plane, maybe even a satellite catching the last trace of sunlight. But no plane burns like this. No satellite grows brighter with every heartbeat. The point sharpens, swells, blooms into a fire so radiant that it erases the constellations around it. The night sky is torn open by a streak of living flame. You stumble back, shielding your eyes, though you can't look away. The fireball rips across the heavens with a hiss you can almost hear, a trail of molten orange and ghostly blue stretching behind it. The ground brightens as though dawn has arrived too soon. Shadows leap and dance, long and monstrous. For an instant, you feel as if you are standing on a stage beneath some unholy spotlight. The sound follows. First, a low growl, distant and rolling, the kind of thunder that announces storms over the horizon. Then, moments later, a concussive boom that tears through the night, rattling windows, vibrating in your chest. Dogs bark wildly. Lights flick on in farmhouses. The very air shakes with a violence you cannot explain. It is not just a streak of light. It is an invasion. The fireball splits, fragments bursting like fireworks. Trails scatter, weaving across the sky, some vanishing, others burning stubbornly as if refusing to die. One piece streaks lower, arcing like a blade, vanishing behind the tree line to the south. And for the briefest moment, the horizon glows, as though the earth itself has caught fire. Your neighbors gather outside, shouting, pointing, some cheering like it's a spectacle, others praying under their breath. Someone mutters the word Meteor, their voice thin, uncertain. Someone else whispers, sign, but you can't name what you're seeing. All you know is that the night has changed, and you will never forget this burning sky. You lift your phone, fumbling to record, but the screen freezes, glitches, and dies. The device is hot in your palm, hotter than it should be. Others shout the same complaint, their electronics flickering, shutting down, screens going dark in unison. The fireball doesn't just light the sky. It disrupts it, bends it, makes the air hum with invisible fingers. And then silence. The last fragments fade, swallowed by the night. The stars return, pale and ordinary, as if ashamed of what they've just witnessed. The crickets begin to sing again, hesitant, uncertain. The night tries to stitch itself back together. But the world is not the same. In the distance, a faint plume of smoke rises where the fragment fell. You swear you see the horizon pulse, like embers breathing in the dark. And though you cannot hear it, you feel something, low and resonant, humming through the soil beneath your feet. Something has arrived. You do not know yet what it means. But deep in your chest, beneath the shock and wonder, a sliver of dread has already rooted itself. You realize the truth, even if no one around you will say it aloud. This was not just a meteor, it was an opening, and the night has only just begun. Morning comes reluctantly, as though the sun itself struggles to rise after the chaos of the night before. In Georgia, June dawns are usually gentle, a slow brightening of the fields, the hum of cicadas, and the chirp of birds finding their voices again. But this dawn feels wrong. The air is heavy, the silence unnatural. Even the animals seem hesitant to resume their lives. By the time the sun has climbed above the trees, the first reports flood in. Radio stations buzz with frantic callers, news anchors stumble over their words, and social media is an endless stream of shaky videos. Glowing fire streaks tearing the night apart, flashes so bright they turned farms into daylight for a few heartbeats, and the bone-rattling sound that followed. People argue over what they saw. Some insist it was simply a meteor, nothing more. Others swear it was something larger, something foreign. In towns across northern Georgia, strange disturbances are already being reported. Power grids flickered like candles. Cell towers briefly failed. Hundreds of car alarms went off in unison, then died completely. A farmer outside of Rome claims his cattle stampeded violently, breaking through fences as though fleeing some invisible predator. And near the town of Elberton, a woman insists she heard voices carried on the shockwave, voices speaking in a language she didn't recognize, yet felt like it came from inside her own skull. Scientists scramble to respond. The American Meteor Society issues a preliminary statement, confirming that what people witnessed was indeed a significant bolide event, a large meteor entering the atmosphere and fragmenting. NASA reports that it was likely space debris or a natural rock no larger than a car. They urge calm, insisting the phenomenon is rare but not unheard of. But locals are not convinced. The crater is real. By mid-morning, search teams and curious citizens alike converge on the woods south of Athens, where the glow was last seen. Drone footage, though grainy and unstable, shows scorched treetops and a black scar cutting through the forest. Smoke rises from the ground as if the earth itself is smoldering. Birds avoid the area entirely, circling high above, but never daring to enter. Then comes the first sign that this is no ordinary meteor strike. Emergency responders approach the site, but their radios crackle and die. Compasses spin wildly. Electronic equipment refuses to function within a mile of the crater. And the ground, when touched, seems to hum, like a living engine buried deep beneath the soil. Witnesses describe the sensation as standing barefoot on top of a massive speaker, feeling sound more than hearing it. The air smells wrong too, not smoke, not ozone, something metallic, sharp, almost electric. One firefighter compares it to the scent of blood mixed with static. Another collapses suddenly, clutching his head as though overwhelmed by a noise no one else can hear. By noon, the site is cordoned off. Black SUVs arrive. Men in unmarked uniforms step out, and locals are pushed back behind hastily erected barricades. Officially, it's now a federal investigation. Unofficially, the people whisper the word no authority dares to say aloud: alien. Across the state, theories multiply like wildfire. Some claim the fireball was a crashed satellite or a secret weapons test gone wrong. Others say it's a cover-up, that the government knows it wasn't just rock from space but something intelligent. Evangelical preachers seize the moment, calling it a sign of judgment, a herald of the end times. And conspiracy forums light up, connecting the fireball to a string of UFO sightings across the U.S. in the weeks leading up to June 2025. But beyond the speculation and paranoia, one truth becomes undeniable. The impact changed something. Days later, the effects spread farther than anyone expects. Electronics near the crater continue to fail. Animals avoid the zone entirely. People living within 10 miles report strange dreams, visions of lights underwater, structures that stretch into endless darkness, and voices whispering from the sky. Children wake in the night screaming about the burning star that talks. The shockwave wasn't just physical. It was psychological, spiritual, maybe even cosmic. Something entered with that fireball, and Georgia has become its first stage. The crater waits, guarded, silent on the surface. But beneath it, something is moving. And soon, the world will notice. By the third day, the site has become the most heavily guarded patch of forest in Georgia. Black tarps stretch between trees, helicopters circle overhead, and armed personnel in plain uniforms patrol the perimeter with watchful eyes. Yet no amount of secrecy can stop the rumors from spreading. From the outside, you can just barely glimpse the scar in the earth where the fireball struck. Trees are snapped like matchsticks, their trunks splintered and blackened. The ground is carved into a gouge at least 50 feet wide, sloping downward into what looks like a smoldering pit. Smoke still rises in thin curls, though no open fire remains. At night, witnesses say the soil glows faintly. Not orange like embers, but a pale bluish white, as though the earth itself is holding its breath. The first official team allowed entry is a mix of geologists, astrophysicists, and hazardous material specialists. Their task: confirm that the object was a meteor and rule out contamination. They approach in heavy protective suits, their faces hidden behind tinted visors. The suits aren't just for show. Radiation meters click frantically as they get closer, though the readings don't match any known source. It's not gamma, not alpha, not beta. It's something else. Something new. When they descend into the pit, they find the soil melted into glass, fused together by unimaginable heat. Yet in the center of the crater, instead of solid rock, they find a cavity, an open hollow where the meteor should have come to rest. It's as though whatever entered the atmosphere burned a hole straight through the earth, then kept going, vanishing beneath the crust. But the strangest discovery is not the absence of debris. It's the presence of markings. Etched along the melted glass walls of the crater are grooves, deep, deliberate lines that spiral inward like the rings of a labyrinth. At first, the scientists assume it's the result of natural fragmentation, molten rock cooling unevenly. But the patterns are too precise. They curve with intention, repeating in sequences, intersecting at exact angles. To one linguist brought on site, they resemble proto-writing, the kind you'd find carved into stone tablets thousands of years ago. To another, they look almost like circuitry. And then there's the sound. Standing at the crater's edge, the hum grows louder, steady and resonant, like a choir hidden underground. Instruments can't capture it. Recordings play back silence. Yet everyone who steps closer insists they feel it pressing into their bones, vibrating their teeth, rattling in their chests. One scientist vomits from the sensation. Another begins laughing uncontrollably, unable to stop for several minutes. Locals watching from a distance are not so easily fooled by meteor explanations anymore. A farmer from Elberton sneaks past the barricades one night and makes it within 100 yards of the pit before being caught. Later, he swears that something was moving in the glassy walls, shadows shifting just below the surface, as though the crater wasn't an empty scar but a window. Meanwhile, media coverage explodes. Drone operators, despite warnings, fly over the restricted area, capturing blurry glimpses of the glowing pit. Headlines scream across the nation: "Meteor or machine? Georgia crater baffles scientists." Local residents report nightmares after fireball. Alien artifact buried beneath the South? The government responds with carefully worded statements, assuring the public that the site poses no danger and that all necessary precautions are being taken. But their tight-lipped responses only deepen suspicion. Why are soldiers stationed at a meteor site? Why are locals threatened with fines and arrest just for wandering near? Why has the FAA issued no-fly zones over the region? By the end of the week, even mainstream scientists begin to whisper off the record. The grooves in the crater don't match meteor physics. The readings are beyond terrestrial understanding. And worst of all, the cavity at the center of the pit is widening. Like something beneath the earth is hollowing it out, something alive. The first whispers come quietly. Not everyone in Georgia hears them, of course, but those who live within 20 miles of the crater begin to complain of strange dreams. Nightmares at first, visions of blazing skies, of shadows crawling beneath the trees, of faceless figures gathering around the pit. Yet what unnerves them most isn't the imagery, it's the sound. A voice, soft and persistent, threading through their sleep. A chorus, almost melodic, but never in a language anyone recognizes. People describe it differently. Some say it's like humming, others insist it's more like chanting. But the effect is the same. They wake up drenched in sweat, their hearts pounding, their minds filled with fragments of words they can't quite remember. Local doctors dismiss it as stress. After all, the whole region is buzzing with anxiety. Helicopters roar overhead at all hours, reporters camp along the highways, and every diner conversation circles back to the fireball. But as the nights wear on, the whispers grow bolder. A young woman in Toccoa swears she heard her dead grandmother's voice calling from the trees. A mechanic in Elberton reports hearing laughter, a child's giggle, while working alone in his garage. A pastor in the town of Comer confesses during Sunday service that, in his sleep, a voice asked him to come closer to the light in the ground. By mid-June, the phenomenon has a name: the Georgia Murmurs. The murmurs don't stay confined to dreams either. Hunters deep in the forest report hearing disembodied voices carried on the wind. Families driving past the roadblocks at night claim radios in their cars flicker with static, then bleed into strange whispers that vanish as soon as they pull away. Even soldiers at the site aren't immune. One leaked account describes a guard abandoning his post in the dead of night, wandering toward the crater without flashlight or weapon. He was found standing at the edge, eyes wide, whispering the same phrase over and over: "It's opening." When asked later what he meant, he claimed not to remember leaving his station at all. But the whispers don't just lure people, they change them. Neighbors report personality shifts, sudden mood swings, violent tempers in people who were once calm. A normally quiet librarian in Washington, Georgia, smashes every window in her home after claiming the hum wouldn't stop. A teenage boy sketches elaborate spirals into his notebooks, page after page, filled with perfect replicas of the crater's grooves, though he swears he has never seen them. Psychologists rush to label it mass hysteria. But others point out a troubling detail. The symptoms grow stronger the closer someone lives to the crater, as if the whispers are radiating outward, seeping into the minds of anyone within reach. And then comes the first disappearance. A farmer named Raymond Holbrook leaves his house late one night after telling his wife he had to follow the singing. He never returns. Search parties scour the forest for days, dogs barking and helicopters scanning the canopy, but they find nothing. No tracks, no clothing, no body. Only his hat, discovered on the edge of the restricted zone, damp with dew. The official report chalks it up to an accident, a man lost in the woods. But those who hear the murmurs know better. They say he didn't get lost. He was called. Meanwhile, journalists digging into the story find an unsettling parallel. In the 1800s, Cherokee oral histories described a singing earth in the same region, a place where voices rose from the ground, luring hunters into the night. Some never came back. Others returned with madness in their eyes, mumbling strange sounds until their dying breath. The murmurs are not new. They've been here before. And now, with the fireball's arrival, they are louder than ever. By the third week of June, it becomes clear that the event isn't just about a rock falling from the sky. Something far stranger is unfolding, and the evidence is no longer confined to whispers in the night. It begins with the lights. Drivers along Highway 441 report strange flashes in the tree line, pulses of bluish-white light that ripple like lightning but leave no thunder behind. Power lines buzz, transformers hum, and sometimes whole towns go dark for minutes at a time before flickering back to life. In Comer, porch bulbs glow red for an entire evening, baffling utility workers who swear the grid itself is stable. But the sky tells its own story. People start filming what they call false auroras. Curtains of green and violet shimmer overhead, dancing like the northern lights. Only problem: Georgia isn't supposed to have auroras. Scientists appear on local TV, offering explanations about solar storms, atmospheric reactions, geomagnetic disturbances. Their smiles are polite, but their eyes look tired. It feels less like they're explaining and more like they're buying time. The animals, however, refuse to play along. Cows refuse to leave their barns. Dogs bark at empty fields until their throats are raw. Birds fly in frantic circles over the crater, refusing to land until they collapse mid-air. Even the cicadas, loud, relentless in the summer heat, go silent whenever the lights flare across the sky. And then come the blackouts. Not power blackouts, memory blackouts. People begin reporting lost time. A woman in Athens insists she was driving home from work when, suddenly, it was 2 hours later, and she was parked in her driveway, her gas tank somehow empty. A retired couple camping near the Oconee forest claim they were sitting by their fire one evening, then woke up in their tent the next morning with no memory of crawling inside. One chilling account surfaces from a firefighter stationed near the restricted zone. He radios his crew at midnight, reporting strange flares in the sky. Minutes later, the transmission cuts off. He reappears at dawn, stumbling out of the woods, covered in mud. His first words, "I saw the door open." When questioned, he has no memory of leaving camp. Meanwhile, electromagnetic chaos spreads. Radios bleed static even on unused frequencies. Compasses spin uselessly. Cell phones display scrambled texts, strings of symbols and numbers that don't match any language or code. A teenager in Madison posts a screenshot of her phone displaying what looks like coordinates. 2 days later, her account vanishes. As reports pile up, the government response intensifies. More roadblocks, more men in unmarked vehicles. Helicopters circle the zone nightly, beams of light sweeping over the trees. One farmer claims he saw a convoy move in during a blackout, hauling something enormous under tarps. When dawn broke, tire tracks led straight into the forest, but nothing came back out. The press isn't blind to the escalation. Headlines scream about cover-ups, about FEMA teams mobilized for reasons no one will explain. Independent journalists leak shaky footage of soldiers unloading equipment labeled with biohazard symbols. Officials insist it's routine containment. Locals aren't so sure. Because now people swear they're not just hearing whispers, they're seeing figures. Faint silhouettes moving in the shimmering auroras. Tall, thin outlines darting between trees when the lights pulse brightest. Sometimes, shapes so large they blot out stars for a moment before vanishing as if the night sky swallowed them whole. The crater glows more often now. Hunters watching from the ridges say they've seen beams of light shoot skyward, straight as a pillar, dissolving into the clouds. Strangely, whenever these beams rise, the whispers grow silent, as if something larger is listening. And always the phrase repeats itself, carried in memory blackouts and midnight transmissions, scribbled in notebooks by trembling hands. The door is opening. The people of Georgia don't know what it means, not yet. But they can feel it. The phenomena are escalating. Whatever arrived with the fireball hasn't finished revealing itself. It has only just begun. It starts with a circle. Satellite imagery leaked online shows it first. An area around the crater where the forest canopy looks darker than the surrounding trees. Some dismiss it as burn damage from the fireball, but locals know better. They've been close enough to see with their own eyes. The ground itself has changed. They call it the Black Zone. Within a radius of 5 miles, nothing grows quite the same. Grass wilts to a grayish hue, like ash that somehow still clings to life. Leaves on oak trees shrivel inward, curling like paper under a flame. Deer that wander too close are later found collapsed on trails, eyes clouded white, tongues blackened as though scorched. But the strangest part isn't what you see, it's what you feel. Those who stand at the boundary describe a sensation like stepping into heavy water. The air thickens, the sound dulls, as if every noise is wrapped in cotton. A ringing fills the ears, not painful but constant, impossible to shake. Watches stop ticking. Compasses spin. Phones die instantly, their screens flashing a final static burst before going black. Soldiers set up barricades at the zone's perimeter, but even they seem wary. Footage captured by locals shows guards posted with unusual distance between them, as if no one wants to stand too close. A viral clip surfaces of one soldier ripping off his headset mid-shift, screaming that something's crawling in the frequency before being dragged into a transport vehicle. Inside the Black Zone, people say time behaves differently. A group of teenagers sneaks past the barricades one night with a drone. They record 15 minutes of footage, their camera catching warped trees and patches of glowing soil. But when they return, they find 3 hours have passed. The drone's timestamp doesn't match their own watches. One of the boys vomits immediately, his skin prickling with rashes that never fully heal. Others vanish altogether. 2 reporters, last seen hiking with cameras slung over their shoulders, fail to check in with their editor. Their car is discovered abandoned by the roadside, keys still in the ignition. Their footage has never surfaced. The government calls it radiation poisoning. Locals call it the zone of no return. Still, The most disturbing reports don't come from trespassers. They come from the soldiers inside. A whistleblower leaks that patrols have orders to rotate every 2 hours. Any longer, and men start showing behavioral anomalies. Guards forget their own names, repeat phrases in monotone voices, wander off into the woods as if following invisible paths. Some claim to see structures deep in the zone, shadows of towers or monoliths that vanish when approached. One soldier describes a hum beneath the ground, like machinery buried under miles of rock. Another insists he saw the crater pulse, as if something within it were breathing. And then there are the lights. Not the bluish flashes in the sky, but low to the ground, spheres of faint yellow that drift silently between the trees. Soldiers fire at them, but the bullets pass through without impact. Witnesses say the lights sometimes pause, hovering near a person, before vanishing into the earth with a sound like rushing wind. The whispers are louder here too. They echo inside helmets, bleed through radio static, murmur even when no one speaks. Some insist the voices now form words, sentences almost comprehensible. One phrase keeps repeating, scribbled in notebooks, confiscated by command, murmured by soldiers in their sleep. The door is nearly ready. Outside the barricades, locals gather in tense silence. Farmers, shopkeepers, pastors, school teachers, all of them staring into the trees, waiting. Waiting for what, they don't know. But the black zone is growing. Every week, the boundary creeps outward, an invisible tide swallowing more land. What was once 5 miles becomes 6, then 7. Fields die, barns sag, houses are abandoned. The circle expands without warning, without reason, as if whatever lies inside the crater is preparing to claim more of the world. And through it all, officials insist there is no danger. But you've been close enough to the boundary to know that isn't true. You've felt the heaviness in the air, heard the whisper pressing against your skull. And now, with the zone expanding, you know the question isn't whether people will enter it. The question is when it will reach them. It begins quietly. Long before officials admit anything is spreading, people living near the black zone start reporting strange disturbances on their land. At first it's small things. A barn door left open when no one touched it. Tools moved from one shed to another, crops bent into spirals overnight. Farmers blame mischievous teenagers or animals testing fences. But the longer it continues, the harder it is to explain away. Cameras offer no answers. One family in Oglethorpe County sets up motion sensors and floodlights to catch whoever is trespassing in their cornfield. At exactly 2:13 a.m., the sensors trigger, the lights blaze on. But the footage shows nothing, just rows of stalks swaying in still air, bending as if pressed by an invisible weight. By dawn, the corn is flattened in perfect circles, so wide you could see them from the highway. Neighbors whisper that the lights in the sky aren't staying in the sky anymore. A dairy farmer claims he woke in the middle of the night to find his cows standing in a line, all facing the forest. Their eyes glowed faintly in the moonlight, pupils wide as if entranced. When he tried to herd them back, he heard movement in the dark. Heavy, deliberate steps pacing just beyond the fence. He never saw what made them. Others are less lucky. A mother in Crawford wakes to find her daughter's bedroom window wide open, the curtains fluttering in the humid night air. The child is gone. After frantic searching, they discover her in the backyard, standing barefoot in the grass, staring at the sky. She doesn't respond when spoken to, doesn't blink until dawn. When she finally does, she whispers a phrase no one in the family understands. They said the ground is opening. Dogs vanish. Chickens are found clustered in corners of their coops, pecking frantically at the walls as if trying to escape. Hunters in the woods swear they hear footsteps following them, branches breaking in rhythm with their own, only to find nothing when they turn. The most unnerving reports are of the figures. Not tall, alien shapes this time, but human silhouettes, neighbors, friends, even relatives, spotted wandering the forest in the dead of night. A man swears he saw his brother standing at the edge of his property, smiling. But when he called out, the figure dissolved into mist, leaving behind only the faint echo of his name. One soldier stationed on the perimeter claims he saw his wife standing in the woods, calling to him softly. He nearly broke formation to follow her until another guard grabbed him, shouting that his wife lived 3 states away. Later, when questioned, the soldier insists it really was her, that he could smell her perfume on the night air. The visitors don't always vanish. Sometimes they leave marks, long scratches on windowsills, handprints burned into walls, soil inside bedrooms, as if someone tracked mud across the floor. A teenager posts a photo online of 3 long depressions in the dirt outside his house, too wide for animal tracks, too precise to be random. He deletes the post within hours, but by then, the image has already spread. The whispers grow clearer during these encounters. Families report hearing voices calling from outside, softly repeating names, coaxing them to come closer. Others hear commands: open the door, step outside, follow the lights. Some resist, others obey. Those who do rarely remember what happens next. A man in Madison wakes up in his truck, parked 2 miles from his house, with no memory of how he got there. A woman in Elberton opens her eyes to find herself standing waist-deep in the river, her nightgown soaked, the whispers still echoing in her skull. And through it all, officials insist there is no threat. Press conferences are brief, carefully worded. Atmospheric disturbances, they call it. Stress responses from local residents. But the people who live here know better, because the visitors don't just come at night. One afternoon, in broad daylight, a crowd of schoolchildren at recess watches a sphere of light drift across the playground. Teachers scramble to herd them inside, but the orb hovers motionless for nearly 5 minutes, humming faintly, before shooting straight into the sky. By evening, the whispers repeat a new phrase, heard in radios, in dreams, in the mouths of sleepwalkers. They walk among you now. The fragment is discovered by accident. A logging crew working near the edge of the black zone strikes something hard beneath the soil. At first, they assume it's a buried boulder, but when their chainsaw teeth meet the surface, the blade snaps in 2. Not stone then, something harder. Word spreads quickly. By the time authorities arrive, locals have already gathered, peering into the shallow pit where the strange object rests. It looks like glass at first, translucent, with faint veins running through it like marble. But when the sunlight hits, it glows faintly from within. A soft golden pulse, almost like a heartbeat. The soldiers seal off the site within hours, setting up tents and tarps, but not before 6 people have already touched it. Those who did are never the same. A teenager claims the stone burned cold beneath his palm, so cold it felt like frostbite. Yet when he pulled away, no mark remained. A logger insists he saw visions flash in his head, a sky filled with fire, cities underwater, shadows circling the earth like vultures. One woman faints on the spot after whispering, "It's awake." Scientists are brought in. At least men and women in lab coats, their vans unmarked, their badges carefully hidden. They cart the fragment away under heavy guard. But even inside the tents, the light continues to glow, leaking through fabric walls, pulsing steadily, like a beacon. And then, one night, it changes. The pulse grows stronger, brighter, flickering in rhythm like Morse code. People nearby report feeling dizzy, their teeth aching, their blood pounding in their ears. Radios within 10 miles switch on by themselves, all broadcasting the same faint hum, the exact same rhythm as the stone's pulse. A soldier collapses during guard duty, his body seizing. When he wakes, his eyes are glowing faintly gold. He speaks a single sentence before slipping into unconsciousness again. The stone is calling. The whispers intensify after that. No longer random murmurs, but urgent commands. Farmers wake in the night to scribble symbols into notebooks, circles within circles, diagrams of doorways they've never seen. Children begin humming the stone's pulse during play, perfectly synchronized, as if they'd practiced it for weeks. And then comes the experiment. Sources claim the scientists drill a sample from the fragment, no larger than a fingernail. Within seconds, the tents shake as though a minor earthquake ripples beneath them. Lights flicker across the forest. The black zone expands by nearly half a mile overnight. The sample, they say, pulses even louder than the original, and unlike the main stone, it doesn't stop. It beats faster and faster, like something alive, like something waking up. Rumors swirl that the fragment isn't a meteor at all, but a seed, or worse, a key. That it didn't fall from space, but was buried long ago, hidden until the fireball cracked the earth open to reveal it. The Cherokee stories resurface again. Legends of the sky seed, a gift or a curse from beings who once walked among humans. Some say it was buried to protect mankind. Others say it was locked away to keep something else from returning. No one agrees on what the stone truly is, but everyone feels the change it brings. Animals gather near the perimeter, silent, staring toward the glowing tents. Storms form overhead, thunder rolling even on cloudless days. And always, always the whispers, "It is almost ready." On the night of June 29th, the glow reaches its peak. Witnesses as far as Atlanta report seeing the horizon flicker gold, as though dawn were breaking hours too early. In the tents, scientists scramble, shouting over alarms. Soldiers grip their weapons tighter, though no order is given, because everyone feels it in their bones. The stone isn't just waking, it's waiting. The air grows heavy in Georgia. Not the kind of heaviness you feel before a thunderstorm, but something deeper, like the atmosphere itself has thickened, pressing against your skin, making each breath feel labored. People describe it as walking underwater, except the water is invisible. The fragment's heartbeat is now unmistakable. No longer a faint pulse, but a steady thrum that shakes window panes, rattles dishes, and makes the ground itself feel alive. Residents within 50 miles wake in the night as their houses vibrate gently, like the world is sharing a single heartbeat. Phones die. Compasses spin. GPS systems glitch, drawing strange loops across maps. And everywhere, the whispers grow clearer. Not random words anymore, not fragmented chants, full sentences. "We are returning. The gate opens. You are not alone." At first, people dismiss them as hallucinations, but when entire families describe hearing the exact same sentence at the exact same moment, disbelief begins to crumble. Priests preach warnings of demons. Scientists insist it's mass hysteria. Conspiracy theorists declare it proof of alien communication. But no one, not even the government, can deny that something is happening. The black zone has tripled in size. Entire stretches of forest now glow faintly at night, the soil itself shimmering with golden veins. Animals no longer flee. They gather in unnatural silence, forming circles, watching the sky. Even insects seem synchronized, buzzing in rhythm with the pulse. And then, on July the 1st, it begins. The sky tears open. Not literally, at least not in the way you'd expect. No crack appears. No lightning bolt rips downward. Instead, the stars themselves rearrange. Astronomers across the world confirm it. The constellations above Georgia shift subtly, as though some cosmic hand were turning the heavens like puzzle pieces. The result is a shape. A circle of stars forming perfectly above the black zone, pulsing in time with the fragment. People flood the highways to witness it. Drones capture eerie footage of the glowing circle above the forest, the golden pulse below, and between them, a shimmering column of light that rises like a bridge. The whispers grow louder, no longer inside your head but outside, vibrating in the air like thousands of voices chanting in unison. Every language, every tone, blending into one impossible chorus. The stone responds. The fragment lifts itself from the ground, rising slowly, weightless, glowing brighter than the sun. The scientists scatter, shielding their eyes, but the soldiers stand frozen, their weapons useless against something that defies gravity itself. And then, the light expands. It surges upward, connecting earth to sky, locking the star circle and the stone into one blazing column. The ground trembles. Trees snap like matchsticks. Rivers froth as though boiling. And in the midst of it all, the air splits with a sound unlike anything ever heard before. Something between a roar and a hymn, a vibration so deep it makes your bones ache. Across the world, people feel it. New York, Los Angeles, London, Tokyo. Reports pour in of the same sound echoing faintly in the distance, as though Georgia has become the speaker for the entire planet. And then come the shadows. Inside the column of light, dark shapes flicker. Tall, thin, shifting forms, neither solid nor smoke. At times they seem human, at times utterly alien, their outlines dissolving and reforming as if reality itself struggles to contain them. Eyewitnesses swear the figures are moving closer, stepping through the light, reaching toward Earth. Panic erupts. Some fall to their knees in worship. Others run, screaming into the woods. Cameras capture the figures in grainy detail, enough to prove they are not tricks of the eye, but not enough to reveal their true nature. And through it all, the whispers speak as one. The convergence is now. Governments across the globe scramble. Fighter jets scramble over Georgia's skies, but none approach the light. Missiles are armed, but not launched. Because deep down, everyone knows. This isn't a battle that weapons can win. The convergence continues for hours. The stone pulses faster and faster until it no longer feels like a heartbeat but a countdown. The column widens, swallowing the forest, swallowing the scientists, swallowing everything within miles. And then, silence. The light collapses in on itself, imploding into a single blinding flash. When it fades, the black zone is gone. Not destroyed, not scorched. Gone. An empty crater yawns where the forest once stood, the soil smooth as glass, as though nothing had ever existed there at all. The stone, the tents, the people, all vanished. The only thing left is the echo of the whispers. We are here. The world wakes on July 2nd to a silence so profound it unsettles even the most skeptical minds. The forest in Georgia is gone, erased as if by the hand of some cosmic sculptor. Where trees once swayed, where rivers once ran, there is now only a barren, glassy crater reflecting the pale dawn sky. At first, people think it's over. News anchors call it the event. Commentators debate whether it was a meteor strike, an experimental weapon, or something beyond human comprehension. But none of their words capture the strangeness of the air, the way it hums faintly, the way shadows bend oddly near the crater, the way birds refuse to fly overhead. Satellite imagery confirms the impossible. The black zone is simply missing, erased from the Earth's memory. Not scorched, not flattened, gone. Like a missing page torn from a book. The families of the vanished scientists and soldiers demand answers. Governments remain silent. Every official statement is evasive. We are investigating. We are assessing the data. We will provide clarity soon. But the truth is obvious. There is no clarity. Meanwhile, the footage spreads. Millions watch shaky videos of the convergence online. The glowing column, the shifting figures, the whispers vibrating through the speakers. Some dismiss it as doctored. Others insist it's proof of contact. But no one can deny what they see in the terrified eyes of those who fled, the look of people who witnessed the impossible. Conspiracy theorists flourish. Some say the figures were interdimensional travelers. Others insist they were ancient gods returning to claim the earth. A few whisper of time travelers, future versions of ourselves, reaching back to alter the past. Each theory more bizarre than the last, and yet none can be dismissed entirely, because the whispers haven't stopped. Across the world, ordinary people report hearing them. At first faint, like static on the edge of sleep. But then clearer. We are here. The gate remains. This is only the beginning. In New York, commuters freeze in subway tunnels as the lights flicker and the words vibrate through the concrete. In Los Angeles, Entire crowds at outdoor concerts fall silent at once, hearing the same phrase in unison. In Tokyo, London, São Paulo, the same. Humanity united, not by choice, but by a voice no one can silence. Religious leaders declare it Judgment Day. Scientists call for calm. Governments tighten their grip on information. But none of it matters, because the truth is already in the air. Something has arrived, and it isn't leaving. Back at the crater in Georgia, strange things continue to unfold. At night, faint glows ripple across the glassy surface, like reflections of stars that aren't in the sky. Animals gather at the edges, staring silently into the void. No one dares step inside, but the pull is undeniable. You feel it even now. As if the crater isn't empty at all, but full, overflowing with a presence too vast to see. A presence that watches, waits, whispers. And maybe, just maybe, it's waiting for you. So you take one last deep breath, realizing the world has crossed a threshold it can never step back from. Georgia will never be the same, neither will New York, or London, or anywhere else. The convergence wasn't an ending. It was a door, and the door is still open. The final whisper comes soft as sleep, curling through your mind like smoke. We are already inside.